It's probably fair to say that distractions aside, this campaign stands a good chance of being defined by actual issues. The candidates fought this week on taxes and Social Security as home foreclosures and inflation jumped. Gas prices continued to rise and economic anxiety settled in for a long stay. How much of all of this is driving this campaign? Is there any way to know, David?
Well, I think, yeah, quite an amount. The economists can't agree whether we're in recession or not, but unemployment is up, house prices are falling, foreclosures are running 50% ahead of last year. As you point out, inflation's up. Not only is gasoline over $4 a gallon, but now the airlines are going to start charging us for the first bag we check.
And for the sodas.
And for the sodas.
It's just
but I'm willing to give up the sodas. It's the baggage that bothers me. And that clearly is spilling over to the campaign. In the polls that we do at the Journal, we see as much anxiety about the economy today as we did back in 1992 when Bill Clinton was using the economy to beat George Bush the first over the head. In December, people were saying that their big issues were Iraq and health care. And today, their big issues are jobs, the economy, and energy prices. And so the candidates see the same polls, and they're both trying to court the voters. And we're discovering that finally we can have a debate instead of this hair splitting between Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama. They're real differences.
Well, that's true. We spent a lot of time trying to explain what the difference was between Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama on something like health care, and there wasn't that big a difference. So as we see them laying out their cases this week on economic issues, what are the big differences between Barack Obama and on these key issues and John McCain?
Well, it's clearly a big difference on taxes. No matter how you cut the numbers, McCain would collect about $1 trillion less over 10 years in taxes than Obama would. We would have a bigger government. We would have more government spending under President Obama, if you take him at his word, than we would under President McCain. You've pointed out there are differences on Social Security. Senator McCain is sounding friendly towards the private accounts that President Bush backed. Senator Obama is talking about raising the payroll tax for people who make over $250,000 a year. And we've seen some minor differences on gas prices. Senator McCain would suspend the gas tax. Senator Obama wouldn't. Senator Obama's for a windfall profits tax. But I think this will come into starker relief as the campaign goes on, because they are big differences, and this is a big difference between Democrats and Republicans.
Well, that's what I was going to ask. Is there really anything in either of these are two guys who are supposed to be, transcendent of party labels, but is there anything in either of their economic plans that isn't sort of safely Democratic or safely Republican?
Not much. There's some stuff on the margins. I think Senator McCain is more willing to talk about regulation than some other Republicans were. And Senator Obama is influenced some by the current thinking in the Democratic Party that you shouldn't always regulate markets, but you should try to harness them. But basically, this is surprisingly settling into a typical Republican versus Democratic framework.
David, to be realistic, what's the actual ability of a president to get control of economic policy, for instance, through the Federal Reserve?
Well, it's a great question. The president gets the credit of the blame for the economy more than he deserves. The Fed actually has quite a bit to do with what goes on in the economy, and the next president has an extraordinary opportunity. There are 7 seats on the Federal Reserve Board. 4 of them are going to be vacant. The Democrats in Congress will not approve any Bush nominees. So the next president gets to name 4 of the 7 members of the Federal Reserve Board in his first year. And in his second year, he gets to decide whether to reappoint Chairman Ben Bernanke or his number 2, Vice Chairman Don Cohn. So I think that's a significant power. I know everybody talks about Supreme Court appointees as if they're the thing, but they don't turn over like this.
And David, I was wondering, since President Bush still is in power, how much is he doing on these issues, and to what extent is he having any success in terms of, for example, propping up the dollar, given its trouble that we're in?
Well, the president has never been much of an activist on the economy to begin with, and he did make a big move earlier in the year with pushing the stimulus checks through Congress, and they are showing up in consumer spending. We saw this in the recent
Did that also drive the inflation rate, the spending? Or is there
Probably
not a
not.
connection?
Inflation is up because oil prices and commodities are up. And I think generally the verdict is that this stimulus is well-timed and it's helping to boost consumer spending, which it was supposed to. On the dollar, Henry Paulson, the Treasury Secretary, President Bush, Chairman Ben Bernanke, they've all been trying to talk up the dollar, and it's just an evidence of how little power sometimes the U.S. government has because the winds are all blowing against them.
It's easy for us to sit around this table because we all appear to be employed and are relatively comfortable, but you have to ask the question, how bad is it really, the economy, and how much of it is just our fear driven by things that are obviously bad, like gas prices?
I think it's moderately bad. We have 5.5% unemployment. 20% of those people are unemployed have been out of work for 26 weeks or more. But the thing that's frightening is that it looks more likely to get worse before it gets better. The combination of falling house prices and rising oil prices lead people to think that the next few months could be rough.